There are so many movies coming out the second to last week of 2020. Let's dive into Sylvie's Love. It's a new Amazon Prime original starring Tessa Thompson. A woman working at her father's record store meets an aspiring saxophone player who will influence her life for years to come. Like I said, Tessa Thompson stars in this, and she is our title character, Sylvie. The film takes place in 1962, but also flashes back to 1957. I love the aesthetic of this film. The quality, the framing, the colors, even the grain feels like a movie that came from the late 50s or early 60s. This quality really gives the movie a genuine feel, but it could also be why it won't resonate with everybody. Because like many movies from the late 50s and the early 60s, the pace is slow. And I'd not classify this strictly as a romance, but it does have that element to it. Thompson stars with Nnamdi Asomugha as Sylvie and Robert. They build some good chemistry through the story, and their relationship is a little bit like Tracy and Hepburn. It's not always rosy, but there is some depth to it. I like them together, even though I found a lot of the relationship to be very frustrating. There's lack of communication, misunderstandings, or even noble gestures that inevitably lead to somebody's feelings getting hurt or somebody being dissatisfied. Now, some of the supporting cast in this is fun as well, even though it did take me a moment to recognize them. Lance Reddick, Eva Longoria, and Erica Gimple are familiar faces and good additions to the story. The soundtrack is great to listen to also. I'm not typically a jazz person, but I was engaged in this one. And when you take into account that Robert is a saxophonist, or a saxophonist, in a jazz band, you expect to hear music from that genre throughout the movie. This is written and directed by Eugene Ash, who is a recording artist turned director. I think his knowledge of music and the music industry really helped to shape the story and to give it a legitimacy to it. We get a glimpse of the recording process as well as kind of an inside look into bands and how they function. I mean, it's not an expose on the music culture or the scene, but it does feel genuine in what we see. I like that we get to see a self-determined strength from Sylvie. She is wildly smart and self-reliant. She has a dream and she goes after it. And she has the strength to stand up for herself and not compromise on that dream. This does take its time in the storytelling, and I get that the pace is going to turn some people off. It does take a little while for us to walk through this relationship with Robert and Sylvie. But I think they were really trying to get the look, the feel, just all of the aesthetics of a film that came from the 60s era. And they do that really well. You have good characters and a compelling relationship, and that's what helps make the story engaging. At times there is this sweetness and this innocence to the movie, but also it takes away some of that also because of some of the elements within the story. And I like that it doesn't try and just polish it all and make it all kind of cutesy and innocent, that it does bring in some real world complications to the story. When this happens, it makes it more real. It makes it more relatable, and therefore the characters then are much more relatable and somebody that we can resonate with. So if you do enjoy movies from the 60s, if you enjoy that era and just kind of the look and the feel of movies from that time, then you probably are going to get a kick out of this one. I mean, it's certainly worth checking out, but I don't think it's one that you would have to rush right out and see, or because it's playing on Amazon Prime, just push everybody off the couch and commandeer the remote control to just sit yourself down and watch this one at top priority. It is good to check out, and it's good to watch Tessa Thompson in something that isn't superhero or kind of sci-fi. There's some sex, no nudity, some profanity, and not really any violence. I give Sylvie's Love 3.5 out of 5 couches. Are you a fan of the films from the early 60s? Do you have a favorite? Let me know what that is in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for catching with me.